All right, everyone, get ready because today we're diving headfirst into the wild world of Godzilla. We've got a ton of your requests to break down the science behind this iconic monster, from articles to forum threads. You guys said it all, and trust me, it gets weird.
It really does.
I mean, we're talking about a creature that defies pretty much every law of physics just by existing. So get ready to stretch those brain muscles because we're about to tackle the impossible biology of Godzilla.
Should be fun.
You know, when you really stop and think about it, how does something that massive even stand up? It's like, what would a Godzilla skeleton even look like?
Yeah, that's the first hint that we're deep into the realm of fantasy here. But that doesn't mean we can't have some fun exploring the possibilities. And actually, a lot of the stuff you sent in pointed to one key concept, the square cube law.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. Physics isn't exactly my forte.
Well, imagine a balloon, right? You blow it up bigger and bigger. What
The
happens?
pop.
Exactly. And that's because the surface area of the balloon increases way slower than its volume. Eventually, the skin just can't handle the pressure. Now, think about that same principle, but with bones and muscles instead of rubber.
You're saying Godzilla's bones would have to be unbelievably strong, like way stronger than any animal on Earth.
Exactly. I mean, one of the articles you sent used this really cool example of a 10-foot steel beam. Now, imagine you scaled that beam up 10 times in each dimension. It wouldn't just weigh 10 times more, it'd be 1,000 times heavier.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. And at that size, even steel can't hold up its own weight. That's the square cube law in action.
So even if Godzilla's bones were made of solid steel, they'd just like crumble under all that weight.
Pretty much.
Okay, so let's just say, hypothetically, Godzilla did evolve some super strong bones, maybe even made of, I don't know, vibranium or something crazy like that. How would the rest of his body even function? Like, wouldn't just lifting his head make him pass out from the blood pressure changes?
Oh, absolutely. Even with super bones, his circulatory system would be working overtime, to say the least.
You were talking about giraffes earlier.
Exactly. They're a perfect example of how tricky circulation can be for large animals. They've got these like special valves in their necks, extra thick artery walls, all sorts of adaptations just to keep the blood flowing to their brains.
And even then, don't they still almost pass out if they stand up too fast?
All the time. It's a real balancing act for them. Now, scale that up to Godzilla's size. We're talking about a creature hundreds of times heavier with a neck, what, like a school bus long. To pump blood that distance against gravity, his heart would have to be, well, let's just say enormous.
So how does he do it? Does he have a super heart or what?
Actually, some of the theories you guys sent in suggested multiple hearts, like a whole network of hearts spread throughout his body, each one pumping blood to a specific area.
Huh, like a power grid or something?
Exactly. Distributing the load, making sure everything gets the blood it needs. Pretty ingenious when you think about it. But even then, we still haven't touched on the biggest question. What powers this whole crazy system?
You mean, like, what does Godzilla eat? Because honestly, that's what I've been wondering this whole time. Like, if my chihuahua eats her weight in kibble every week, how much food would it take to fuel a Godzilla?
And that's where things get really wild. Because a lot of the stuff you sent in suggests that food might not be the main source of energy at all.
Wait, seriously, is he like a giant radioactive plant? Does he do photosynthesis or something?
Not quite a plant, but you're on to something with the radioactive part.
Yeah.
Remember that Kaiju news blog you sent?
Yeah.
They proposed that Godzilla's metabolism is less like a biological creature and more like a nuclear reactor.
Okay, hold on. I need to catch up. He runs on radiation, like absorbs it from the environment.
Exactly. Think about it. He's always showing up near nuclear testing sites or absorbing crazy amounts of radiation in the movies. Maybe it's not just a plot device. Maybe it's how he survives.
So instead of eating tons and tons of fish every day, he's basically a walking, talking nuclear power plant. That's efficient, I guess. But that just leads to another burning question. If he's basically a walking reactor, how does he shoot atomic breath? Is that even remotely scientifically possible?
From a purely biological standpoint, probably not. It's about as likely as a chihuahua shooting lasers from its eyes.
Okay, so back to science fiction then.
Not so fast. You guys sent in some pretty wild theories about that, too. One, in particular, was really interesting.
Lay it on me. I love a good theory.
So this one proposed that Godzilla might have this special organ, kind of like an internal storage tank for uranium-235.
Uranium-235, isn't that the stuff they use in nuclear power plants?
That's the one. And the theory is that his body somehow processes and stores it, much like a reactor, and then, well, weaponizes it in the form of his atomic breath.
So he's basically a walking, breathing nuclear weapon.
Pretty much, yeah.
Talk about terrifyingly efficient. But there was another theory about bombardier beetles. Remember that one? What are those things anyway?
Oh, they're incredible. They've got this defense mechanism where they mix chemicals in this special chamber, creates this superheated, noxious spray. Imagine boiling hot, incredibly foul-smelling liquid shot out at predators.
That sounds simultaneously amazing and disgusting. But what does that have to do with, atomic fire?
Well, the theory is that Godzilla might do something similar, but on a much, much grander and more radioactive scale. Instead of chemicals, he's processing and expelling radioactive material. So his atomic breath, essentially.
Okay, so instead of a boiling hot stink bomb, it's a city-leveling beam of radiation. I get it. But let's be real for a second. Wouldn't his breath be insanely bad? Like, we're talking about something that eats radioactive waste for breakfast here.
Actually, one of your sources mentioned that. They said his breath would probably be worse than a Komodo dragon's, and those things are notoriously awful.
Okay, note to self. If I ever meet Godzilla, maybe offer him some mouthwash before we get too close. So we've gone from, like, the square cube law to radioactive breath. I don't even know what to believe anymore.
That's part of the fun, right?
I guess so. But really, why should we even care about the impossible biology of a fictional monster?
Because Godzilla makes us think about things, the really big questions. He's the symbol of nature's power, the things we don't understand yet, even what happens when we mess with things we shouldn't.
Yeah, one of the Reddit threads you guys sent in talked about that, about how Godzilla's kind of a metaphor for nuclear weapons. Like, he's that fear of losing control, unleashing something terrible.
Exactly. A cautionary tale, but with giant monsters.
Yeah.
But he's also like this testament to how tough life can be. If something like Godzilla could even theoretically exist, what else is out there?
Okay, that's kind of blowing my mind a little. We think we have a good grasp on biology, physics, and then you get Godzilla, and it's like, all bets are off.
Right. Someone in that Reddit thread said it perfectly. Yeah, he can't exist using known biology, but let's think outside known parameters. Godzilla forces us to use our imaginations, to imagine things that seem impossible, at least with what we know now.
So maybe the real monster isn't Godzilla. Maybe it's just, like, our own limited view of things.
Now you're getting it.
Yeah.
That's what's so cool about these deep dives. We start with, how does Godzilla even work? And somehow we end up talking about physics, biology, even a bit of philosophy.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll find out some of these impossible creatures from the movies, well, maybe they're not so impossible after all.
Or maybe, just maybe, they've already found us.
Okay, I think that's where we'll leave it for today. That's definitely something to ponder, isn't it? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the wild world of Godzilla. Until next time, keep those imaginations running wild, everybody.